Marimuthu sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Yes, sir. Suresh Kumar, sir. Good evening. You have to unmute yourself.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Welcome. Good evening, other participants. Welcome.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Oh, yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Hello.
Sundar, sir. Sundar Vedam, sir. Dr. Sundar, welcome, sir. You are very much welcome, sir.
Yeah, Let me turn my camera on. Hopefully you can see.
Yeah, please.
Let me raise my volume.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Since it's Zoom, I have usually done the presentation with Zoom, so it should be okay, but maybe we can quickly do one.
Okay, now you can, your sharing rights are given to you. You can try, sir. Just so you can.
Okay, I'm going to do a share screen.
Yeah.
Let me do that. Let me make sure I have the presentation here. To the particular thing, launch the presentation, share screen. Oh, it's saying you are sharing the screen, so I cannot share right now. You might have to stop sharing.
I'll tell my staff to give the rights to you.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, whoever is sharing the screen may need to stop sharing so that I can share my screen.
சாருக்கு ஸ்கிரீன் ஷேர் பண்ணல இன்னும் ஒரு குடுக்கல ரைட்ஸ் கொடுக்கலையா கொடுத்தீங்களா ஓகே
I think I have the right, but somebody else is sharing, so I'm not able to share right now, even though I have the right to share, but somebody else is sharing. They have to stop sharing, then I can share.
மாரியமுத்து யாரோ ட்ரை பண்றாங்க ஷேர் பண்றதுக்கு பாருங்க என்னன்னு பாக்குறேன் அந்த பையன் ஷேர்
Yes, somebody
somebody else is trying ன்ற மாதிரி சொல்றாங்க
success is the
Success is to stop that.
there is somebody logged in as success. They are sharing their screen, so I'm not able to share it now.
சரி என்ன ப்ராப்ளம் பேசுங்க சார்ட்ட பேசுங்க என்ன ப்ராப்ளம் ப்ளீஸ் டாக் டு அப்படியா சக்சஸ்னு யாரோ ஒரு பேர்ல ஷேர் ஆயிடுன்னு சொன்னாங்க அப்படி
I think now they've stopped, but I can probably share now. Okay, are you all able to see my screen now?
Yeah, yet to see, sir. Yet to see. We are yet to see.
Okay.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome. Yeah, now it's coming, sir.
Perfect.
Yes, sir. Now our screen has come. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think somebody else still has the mic open. If you're not speaking,
yeah,
maybe.
I'll ask the close other people make it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yes, sir. Shall we start the program, sir? Sundar, sir, Dr. Sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah, yes,
Absolutely,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Go ahead.
Happy good evening to everyone. Today we have an interesting topic. That is ethics and emerging technology. It is going to be delivered by the eminent personality, Dr. Sundar Vedandam, Director of Software Development, Intel Corporation, USA. We, IEI Trichinopalli Local Center, in association with the Computer Society of India, Trichy Chapter, Indian Institute of Welding, Trichinopalli Branch, Indian Welding Society, Southern Zone, the Indian Institute of Metals, Trichinopalli Chapter, Indian Institute of Industrial Engineering, Trichinopalli Chapter, Indian Society of Non-District Testing, Trichinopalli Chapter, Kumari Arivel Pravai are very much welcoming, sir, to today's
Thank you.
program. We are very much, gifted to hear your talk today. Thank you so much for coming to our platform. And we IEI TLC is regularly conduct a weekly Tuesday lecture program for the first 3 decades without non-stopping. That's what. Before pandemic, it was in physical mode. We conducted in Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Hall, which is situated in 3,000 acres BHL complex. After that, we switched over to this virtual mode. This is about 140th program today. This is what. And we are the role model to all the professional institutions housed in BHL campus. More than 10 institutions are housed. In that, we regularly conduct programs. We conduct workshops, seminars, symposium, conventions, international conferences, and all. We happening, and it is our aim is to propagate the emerging technology to our members, students, faculties, industry experts, and to the public at a large. This is what we are doing long time, and we are continuing to do the same. Now, with this brief telling about our, we have more than 10,000 members, that is 2,000 corporate members and 7,000 student members are there. And our as a corporate IEI India is having more than 2.5 lakhs members, more than 126 centers are there to propagate these technologies to people. And with this introduction, I call upon Dr. Titus to welcome the gathering. Over to Dr. Titus, our committee member. Dr. Titus, sir. Titus?
Sir, can you able to hear?
Yeah. Please welcome the gathering.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Very good evening to one and all gathered here. I am very happy to welcome the today's guest speaker of this today's forum. First of all, I would like to thank and welcome Mr. Sundar Vedandam, sir, for going to deliver a talk on ethics and emerging technology, which is a very interesting and emerging topic. So, on behalf of IEI Trichinopalli local chapter, I welcome our chief guest of this today's forum, Mr. Sundar Vedandam, sir. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
And also, I would like to welcome the senior members of the IEI TLC chapter and the state council member and all the senior members of the local chapter. And I would also take this opportunity to welcome the gathering and also the participants who are actively involved in this today's forum. So on behalf of IEI Trichy local chapter, I once again welcome all the participants for this today's event. And also I thank Selvaraj sir and all the committee members on behalf of this IEI Trichinopalli local center, local chapter. I once again welcome you all for this today's forum. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Titus, for a nice welcoming the gathering and also the speaker of the day. Now I call upon Engineer Suresh Kumar, our Indian Institute of Welding Honorary Secretary, to introduce our today's chief guest to the audience. Over to Dr. Engineer Suresh Kumar.
Good evening to all of you, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
First of all, I thank Mr. R. Silvaraj giving me the opportunity to introduce Dr. Sundar Vedandam. Dr. Sundar Vedandam is a director of software development working in the network and edge group of Intel Corporation in Allentown, Pennsylvania. His skill set and experience cover a wide range of telecommunication related domains. His team is currently involved in delivering highly optimized firmware layers that run on complex SoC devices that power mobile networks. While the previously delivered software versions have been successfully deployed in 4G networks around the world, his team is currently working on the platform software layer needed for the 5G deployments. He joined Lucent Technologies a couple of decades back and has traveled through various incarnations of its division to eventually become part of Intel Corporation. His research interests include network traffic and congestion management, high-speed networking, security, and the theoretical computer models, areas in which he holds patents and has published papers, book chapters, and articles. He received his PhD in computer science in 1997 from Louisiana State University. In his earlier years, he has worked in a helicopter design bureau and served 2 years as a maintenance engineer in an offshore oil and gas platform. He enjoys writing articles in English and Tamil to help improve public understanding of the technical details behind the fields he has worked on and to attract young students to get into STEM fields. Many of his articles are available online for free. As part of his effort, he has published a book on thought experiments available on the web to help anyone from high school students onwards understand complex ideas embedded in fields like mathematics, computer science, physics, ethics, democracy, and medicine. Thank you, sir. Over to Mr. R. Silvaraj.
Thank you, Engineer Suresh Kumar, for a nice introduction and also telling about the various achievements of Dr. Sundar Vedandam. Really, we are fortunate to have him today. Now over to Dr. Sundar Vedandam for his delivery, sir. His platform is for you, sir. Please, sir. Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Titus, Suresh Kumar, Selvaraj, sir. Everybody, thank you for your kind introduction. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for your time. So let's dive into the topic. Just as I was writing to Dr. Selvaraj, I was traveling till yesterday. I was in Chicago. I was supposed to come back home by like 9-10 o'clock yesterday night. Flight got delayed over and over and got a little bit of cold, and I was worried I'll just make it in time, but managed to land at home at like 2 a.m. in the morning, and then I'm all worked up to talk to you all. So thank you for the opportunity. So the title of the talk is Ethics and Emerging Technology. I do very sincerely believe this is an important topic that as technologists, people who are interested in the area, who are professionally engaged in different kinds of technology, we should pay attention and then educate ourselves, educate our family, friends, community, the societies that we are in, so that the best of what technology can deliver to the society is all delivered correctly, and what can go wrong is avoided as much as possible. Right? Since I do belong to Intel, we do have to put up this legal notice. We can move on. The agenda, or what is it that we are going to talk about, is technology, of course, closely tied to innovation. Without innovation, human society is not going to move forward. So we are not Luddites, we are not against innovation, anything like that. I work for Intel, one of the leading technology companies in the world. So I do see the value in what it is bringing into the society. So that part is all good. But what it delivers affects the society in multiple dimensions, not only in the economics aspect, but in the societal aspects related to ethics, morality, philosophy, honor, and so on and so forth. And while it's delivering a lot of knowledge to the society to help improve it overall, it is also bringing in different problems that we need to be cognizant of and address it correctly. But the solution is not going to come in from just one silver bullet. If you do this, everything will be great. It's not going to be like that. It has to come from multiple angles, multiple directions. That's where I truly believe conversations like we are having now is important, so that we understand it's in multiple dimensions and then make it work for the society well, right? I initially, when I was putting this talk together, I wanted some sort of a metaphor, some overall theme as to what is it that we are trying to do. And so I put up this particular god. So this, in the Roman mythology, this is the picture of a Roman god named Janus. Janus has two faces looking in the opposite direction. It's a god of beginnings, transitions, time, duality, doorways, and endings, right? Just keep this in your mind, and towards the end of the talk, we'll try to come back and see how this relates to what we are talking about, right? So going back, why am I particularly interested in the ethics and technology? Intel is a company that makes technological products, microchips, and so forth. So more technology is always good for us, right? So we make more money, we sell more chips. While that is true, I have my humble beginnings. My dad was working for Indian Bank, and so was getting transferred from little town. Sorry, yeah, I mean, if you're not asking a question, please mute your mic so that we don't hear you on the bridge. So I used to be, I used to go to schools in like really small rural places inside Tamil Nadu. So I did my first grade to fourth grade in Utangarai, near Dharmaburi area. And then in like Pollachi, Pondicherry, places like that. So I've been in really small towns and medium sized towns. Never really lived even in Trichy, Chennai, any city of that size, right? So this is my elementary school. A couple of decades back, when I went back, it still looked more or less like the way that I used to remember. So having come from that beginning, I always think whatever we are doing, is it reaching the right kind of people? What kind of negative or positive influences does it have? And do we have that in our mind when we are developing a new technology and pushing it in, right? So that's the background. That's why I keep thinking we need to make sure that what we are doing has the right impact, right application to the society, and it's not affecting it adversely too much, right? And as the introduction said, I'm always interested in making whatever little things that I know easily accessible to people of diverse background. So I used to be writing articles regularly in a website called Solvanam, Solvanam. In that site, I wrote a series of articles related to thought experiments. In Tamil, called it Sindanai Chodanaigal, meaning thought experiments. Subsequently, I did translate that into English and then published that one. The reason I'm talking about that, you can find the book online. I'm not trying to make any money off of this. It's really priced cheap so that everybody can buy that. And 100% of all the money that's generated goes to support that Solvanam website. So I don't get a penny from that one. So it's just a volunteer effort. In that book, I talked about this one thought experiment. Many of you might have heard about it. If not, it's called trolley problem. So in this problem, this was proposed by ethics and philosophical department professors in the 70s, right? So it's been around for a long while. In this thought experiment, there is a train track. So there is a train or a trolley that is standing there. And there are 5 men working on this track where the train is, right? It's coming down. Somehow the train got unmoored, meaning the brakes failed. and then this starts rolling down this track, right? So if you don't do anything, it's going to just come down and then kill all these 5 people, the 5 workers who are working on this particular track. This is a thought experiment. This is the convenience of doing thought experiments. So you can ask questions like, hey, won't they hear the train rolling down and run away from it, and so forth. Since it's a thought experiment, imagine they are all deaf, right? Or for some reason there is a lot of noise going on, and so they cannot really hear anything that's going on here. Somebody else drew something. Okay. So it will come down and then it will end up killing all these 5 people. And you are a person standing here. Okay. So you have a lever. If you pull this lever, the track is going to switch the train to this adjacent track here. And so the train will change direction. It will go here. There is still one person working on that track. And so it will end up killing that person. So the question is, as a person with this lever standing here, will you pull the lever or won't you pull the lever? When this question is asked, not to like extremely educated or philosophers or anything, but everybody in the world. So rich people, poor people, different races, tribes, different country, continent, whatever. Everybody says, more than 90% says, yeah, I will pull the lever. The question, if you ask why, they say, oh, I mean, instead of killing 5 people, there is only 1 person getting killed. So I'm saving 4 lives. So it's worth doing it, right? So that seems to be a consensus across. Then we slightly change the picture. So instead of imagining you being here, imagine you are actually standing here, right? This is you. Then there is one other person standing next to you. And then the question becomes, you can't pull the lever, you are standing here. So instead of that, you can actually push this person down this track, right, from above that footbridge. So this person will fall down here, the train will run over him, will kill that person. Again, train will stop, the 1 person dies, but 5 people are saved. So when the question is asked again, will you do that? Most people hesitate. They say, no, probably I won't do it. And sometimes if you ask why you won't do it, they're not really sure. Somehow they think this is not the right thing to do. When philosophers really inspected, analyzed, thought about it, they came to the conclusion that people hesitate because in this case, the train is anyway rolling and you are only pulling a lever, right? And so that changes the direction, though it kills 1 person. You are only pulling a lever. You are not physically pushing this person into the track. Whereas here, this person is not really connected to this whole picture at all. Left to nothing, he'll just he'll be there and the train would have just rolled on. But you pushing that person in brings him into the picture, whereas this person was already in the picture in some way, right? And so this feels wrong, but this feels right, even though you're sacrificing 1 life to save 5, right? Originally, this was proposed as a thought experiment in the 70s to show that the innate virtues of human beings comes from some innate sense of humanity itself. It's not coming necessarily from religion or what parents taught you or anything else. So there is an innate virtue in human beings. So that's why everybody, whether they are educated one way or another, whether they are atheists or they are theists or whether they belong to this religion or that country, they all think the same way. So that was the original intent of suggesting and running this experiment. Why are we talking about it this much in detail? That's because originally what was proposed as a thought experiment is now becoming a reality, because now there are self-driving cars till now, and the driver is driving the car. Replace this train with a car, right? And this is a road. When you're coming down, when there is a person suddenly popping up in front of you, whether the driver is able to stop the car and save the pedestrian, really depends on the reflex of the driver, or like whether the person is watching the road and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of variables, right? But now there is algorithm, software, computer that is starting to drive the car. So you can very precisely code what needs to happen in this kind of situation. And if it's a very simple thing, there are people standing in the road, the car has to stop. I mean, there is nothing more to it, right? But this is a thought experiment. So keep imagining the car is coming down and you are the software developer who has to develop the software to decide what needs to happen. And there are 5 people here and you need to brake hard. And when you brake hard, you're still going to hit them if there is not enough time. So you need to, let's say, swerve the car to the side. There is enough space for you to swerve, but there is one person standing maybe on not in the middle of the road, but on the side. So that person is going to get hit and killed, right? So should the software be designed to swerve the car, go hit that person, or that person didn't do anything wrong? He's actually standing on the side of the road correctly, legally. So why should he get killed? So these are the people in the road. So should they get killed? That question comes in. And you can very easily keep changing the scenario here. So saying, let's say instead of 5 people here, say it's only like 2 people here and 1 person here. Should you still swerve the car? Even though this person, it's like you're killing 1 life to save 2 lives, but this person is doing all the right things and these 2 people are doing the wrong things by being in the middle of the road. Or change it to these are 2 kids and this is 1 adult. What should you do, right? So you can keep changing. What if it's a woman? What if somebody is invalid? And so forth. And in each one of these situations, you can code the algorithm in such a way that it will always keep doing the same thing repeatedly, right? So it will always execute the same instruction. It's not going to change. It's not going to depend on the reflex of the driver, how fast somebody can pull the brake, anything like that. So now, whatever the software developers think, whatever the car companies think is the right thing, if they implement it, that is going to become the norm all around the world, right? So there are already questions. For example, you might have heard about this car Tesla, which is an electric car, but that has a lot of self-driving capability. So if the software programmer sitting in California is designing the software, why should that decision determine how lives are saved or killed in German roads, right? Questions like that. So something that used to be kind of a hypothetical philosophical question once upon a time, now suddenly when it's implemented in software, it gets distributed all over the world in a very quick, short span of time. And that determines how things behave all over. So this is not only, I mean, in this case, it's literally the trolley problem became a reality, and then now it's becoming a very real situation, how it should be handled in rest of the world. But you can see the effect of software and technology speeding things up. That's my main motivation here. So what gets done in one corner of the software world can suddenly become the norm all over the world, right? So is that the right thing to do? And whenever we think about such things, there is always rational solutions one can develop. Let me see if I can get rid of this annotation.
Sir, Dr. Sundar sir, sorry to interview. Sir?
Yeah.
Dr. Sundar, yeah. You can unshare and share it so that writing will go up, sir.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Maybe I'll
unshare and again share it, it will go up. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll do. So I unshared. I'm sharing it again. Which sound? Share. Did I share the right screen? Let me see. Share. This is the screen. Yeah. Share sound.
No, now it's gone. Yes, sir. Okay. Please, nice. Thank you, sir. Go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. So, so the other theme that I would keep emphasizing is that anything that looks really difficult, complicated, if you really put the human mind to it, you can develop very good rational solutions to even seemingly intractable problems, right? So there is, you can go to this website that I'll list in a second. So there is a website set up by MIT called Moral Machine Survey, where they post these questions to people all over the world and ask what should the software actually do, right? So these, you might have seen these kinds of graph. These are called spider graph. So here you can imagine each one of the thing that's listed here as different kind of people that are going to be in the road, right, or in the train track, however you want to call it. So for example, sparing pedestrians. So let's say that's one preference, meaning, hey, anytime you have to make a decision, you need to make sure the pedestrians are spared, meaning they should not be hurt. So is that the preference? Or sparing females, so women should be saved first, or sparing the fit, meaning people who are healthy, able, they should be spared. Why should this be? That's because if you really get into moral dilemmas, at some point you will come across a situation where you keep saving the really invalid while sacrificing all the fit people. Eventually you are going to end up with a lot of invalid, which may morally feel right, but in the end it may not be good for the society, because they are all going to die soon and you don't have fit people to continue the society, right? So we can debate that endlessly, but that's one option. So sparing the lawful. So here we are saying if somebody is like jaywalking, crossing the road incorrectly, they should be hurt, mow them down, what do we care? But somebody who's walking on the side correctly, they should be spared, right? Or sparing the higher status. So you can think of this as rich people, or maybe some religious people or famous people, however you want to think, right? So should they be spared? Sparing the young, sparing more people than less, sparing humans versus animals, preference for inaction, meaning that thing happen, however it happens, we should not interfere, right? So these are all the different options one can think of. And then they went around polling people all over the world. So you can see the pink highlighted area are like Western nations in general. The blue ones are Eastern, then the green ones are the southern parts of the world. And these graphs indicate how people answered. So for example, if you take the green part, which is the southern, or let's say the pink part, the Western one, many seem to prefer inaction. So don't do anything, let whatever happens, happens, right? Whereas if you look at the green parts of the world, they think they don't like inaction. They think something needs to be done. That's the best way. And they seem to think female should be spared more, and the young should be spared more, and the people of higher status should be spared more, and so on and so forth. Again, the point here is not to debate what is right and what is wrong here, but this was set up, and even now you can go and take this survey. So this contributes a set of input to this survey, and that can then be taken up by governments, by car company, by whomever is involved in these things, to say, okay, so this is the preference of this society, and so the software should be designed this way so that it acts that way in those parts of the world, right? So that could be one kind of solution. So along those lines, so moving from the trolley problem, we come into another area, again, how technology like affects real life. So this particular card is called a Shirley card. So this was designed originally by the Kodak photo company. So in the 60s, when they initially developed color film technology, it's in the US, and at that time, of course, white people were generally more affluent. They were the ones who were going to the studio to take pictures of themselves. And this secretary named Shirley, she was working in Kodak. So they took a picture of her, and this, imagine, I mean, this is a brand new technology at that time, right? And Kodak was selling these photo printing equipment all over the country, so that individual technician in a small town can print negatives into positive prints and sell photographs. To do that, if they don't give some sort of a calibration mechanism, the photos that may come out with like the colors being off, it's not quite right? So what they did, they actually created one negative and one positive.
So Dr. Sundar sir, one second, sorry to disturb you. Some of the participants given feedback that your voice is less like that. Can you just you close to your mic or just see the direction?
Oh, I'm actually very close.
Please.
Maybe I'll try to speak up a little bit more. Are you able to hear me well?
Sir, please, sir. Now I'm able to hear, but other some parts some feedback has come. Okay, please.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
I'll speak up as much as I can. Actually, the speaker phone is like 2 feet from my mouth, pretty close, but I'll speak up. So they developed this. They'll send one negative and then one print of this photo to with the machine, the color printing machine. So every day morning, the photo printing person is supposed to print one copy of this actual photo, take it out, and then compare it with the copy that got shipped with the machine, right? So they'll make sure that the skin tone, the blue color, white color, all the colors look exactly right. If not, they need to tweak the machine a little bit, make sure it looks good. Then they can start processing the new negatives that have come in, the customer prints, right? So very simple, reliable mechanism that worked really well. Only problem is it worked really well for the white skin tone. It didn't really work that very well for like black, brown skin tones. And so if like Indian people, black people, anybody goes take a picture in those days, it will always look a bit too dark or it won't look right. And it wasn't really corrected immediately. People thought, oh, that's how the technology is for a while. And after a while, when chocolate companies were taking pictures of their products and trying to create advertisements, they noticed that the colors were off and they were complaining to Kodak. And again, when you think about it, rational solutions can always be developed, right? So then they created this alternate version with an Asian, Caucasian, and African American women combination. Then they started using this, and to some extent, the issue got corrected. So if you do try, put your mind to it, things can be improved. But it's important on our part, the technologists, the engineers, the people who are educated, who are working on these areas, to pay attention so that the problems do get corrected. So originally, even that skin tone issue, it might look like that's a photo printing thing in the 60s, who cares now kind of thing. But if you go online and then read a lot of articles, some of those technologies, some of the things that are used still keep seeping into the latest digital technology. So even now, if you take the brand new digital technology cameras, they still frame, reflect, present white skin tones slightly better than black skin tones or brown skin tones. And so there are articles out there saying even when they shoot TV shows, movies, how they need to adjust the lighting or what they need to do to get the skin tones right when it's not Caucasian skin, right? And so that's about just the skin tone aspect, but things keep coming in. So that is like 40 years back. This is like 10, 15 years back. So this is a small video clip. I'm going to play this. I do have that sound that's piping through. So you should see the sound. It's only like less than a minute long. So let me play this and then we'll talk about it in a second.
This is using the video tracking software.
All right.
Explain.
My coworker Wanda and I are sitting in front of an HP Media Smart computer. State-of-the-art computer, wouldn't you say?
I'd say.
We're using the face tracking software, so it's supposed to follow me as I move. I'm black. I think my blackness is interfering with the computer's ability to follow me. As you can see, I do this, no following. Not really following me. I back up, I get really close to try to let the camera recognize me, not happening. Now, my white coworker Wanda is about to slide into frame, you will immediately see what I'm talking about. Wanda, if you would, please.
Sure.
Now, as you can see, the camera is panning to show Wanda's face. It's following her around. But as soon as my blackness enters the frame, which I will sneak into the frame. I'm sneaking in, I'm in there.
That's it. It's
And
over.
there we go, it stopped. My hands are here. Wanda, please get back in the frame. Get back in. As soon as white Wanda appears, the camera moves. Black Desi gets in there. Oh, nope. No face recognition anymore, buddy. I'm going on record.
I hope you're all able to hear the audio also. Dr. Selvaraj or somebody confirm that you heard audio.
Yes, sir. The audio is clear.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So the point here is again, this is just made in just as a joke, but you can see so original thing now gets reflected even in CCD, charge coupled device sensors that are used that still fail to recognize different skin tone. Right, the camera is not moving as much as it should. You can ask, what's the big deal? Just move the camera a little bit, but these things continue to impact how, I mean, these are like little irritants, right? So it keeps coming in to affect people in different ways. So that's like 10, 15 years back.
Sir, your audio is okay, sir. Now, okay, sir. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Please go on. Please.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So this is the latest, right? In the last 3-4 years, facial recognition is being used more and more everywhere. And again, technology, when it works, it's fantastic. It's really cool, really nice, it's really helpful. I've been to conferences where you don't need badges anymore. You just walk in as soon as your face is recognized. You are one of the conference participants. The door opens and you can walk in. You don't need to scan anything, and it's even faster than scanning a badge, right? You just walk in and it's done. It's great. But does it work consistently for everybody all across? Not yet, right? So when it comes to facial recognition, it says that the gender, meaning forget the individual person, whether a person is a male or female, that itself was misidentified up to 1% in lighter skinned males, right? So this is a small study. They took about 400 photographs. So about 4 photographs didn't get recognized. Basically, it's a male picture that was shown that got recognized as female and vice versa, right? But if you go to female, all female thing, then even with white skin tones, up to 7% get misidentified as male, okay? And if you continue, that's darker skin men, then the percentage goes up to 12. Remember here, it's like 1%, now it's already 12%. And then if it's dark skinned or brown skinned women, practically up to 35% of the photographs, the gender gets misidentified, meaning it gets recognized as men when it's actually women, right? So this is a just couple of year old 2018 study. Again, when the solution initially gets developed, of course, nobody is trying to discriminate against brown people or black people or different skin tones or anything like that. But the problem here is something that gets developed because it's computers, because it's software. Very quickly, it can get become the standard, and it can get pushed all around the world. And so it can become like widespread. So if it's 35%, even gender identification is wrong. You can imagine if you're using that to identify criminals or somebody like that, it can make even like 1% mistake out of 1 million would be so much. 100,000 people having these kinds of, hundreds of thousands of people having these kinds of problems, right? So this is a software by Amazon. They call it Recognition. And this Werner Vogel is their software development chief for facial recognition. So they published a stat saying 98% of the time his face was correctly identified. Now we are not talking about just gender identification or anything, but identifying this as Werner Vogel, particular person, right? To that extent. Great, that's fantastic. But still, even this 2%, if you start, scaling it up to millions and millions of facial recognitions every day, that can often be a lot of misidentification that can land a lot of people in trouble, right? So this has happened. There was a study of all the US MLA, MP kind of people, the MPs and Congress people, senators and congressmen and women. Their pictures were taken and then it was analyzed to see how it works, and they found a lot of errors. Many were identified as criminals and so forth. Again, is it all bad? Is it just stuck there? Not at all, right? These companies want the software to improve, sell, and so they keep helping improving on that. But the problem is simply because of how the society is all structured. When they go to the web to pick up a lot of sample photographs that are out there to train the algorithm, because many of these machine learning algorithms need hundreds of thousands, if not millions and millions of pictures to get trained so that they can do that well. The picture ratio tend to skew in favor of lighter skinned people, maybe men more, then less lighter skinned women, and then less brown and black, and then a lot less brown and black women, things like that. So simply since the web or the number of people posting their pictures tend to skew that way, algorithms get trained that way, and so you find more errors on one side compared to the other. And so there has to be a conscious effort to go fix that. Is it possible to fix? Of course it is. So there is a database that's been put together by MIT now that really has a good balance of all kinds of pictures thrown in, and now the algorithm is learning better and it's performing better, right? But if you imagine, eventually doing better is good, but initially when it is not fully polished, if you start deploying it in like criminal identification, something like that, even for a week, if somebody has to go through hell because they got incorrectly identified as the criminal when they had nothing to do with the crime, it's horrible. We don't want such things to happen, right? So that's where these things come into play. Yeah, so I did put this 28 lawmakers in US were incorrectly identified as criminal. So this particular slide shows why, these things are important technology-wise. That's really because in earlier times when, let's say, horse and buggies were there for transportation, and then we moved on to trains, and then those went away, things like that. Any of those changes, people will often talk about changes always take place, the technology improves, things change. And so these are just growing pains, right? This is what happens, but eventually it's good for the world. That's in general true. But in computers, the rate at which things change, right? It gets really dramatic as time progresses. That's what this is trying to show. So this is Lake Michigan. So it's a huge lake. So that has a lot of water. That's in fluid ounces, how much water is there, right? So it's about roughly in some way, think of it's like our brain's capacity, meaning how many calculations it does per second. So computing power doubles every 18 months. So we might have heard that. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So at that rate, so initially when you start with nothing, nothing much happens. So it's been like 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, nothing. You don't see anything at all. 80s, 90s, still nothing. 2000, still nothing. But within this 10-year span, you can see this whole thing just filling up, right? That relates to the exponential rise aspect to which human mind is not necessarily used to. So to illustrate this point, I put together this simple spreadsheet. You all might have heard this story before. There was like a chess champion, right? Imagine in ancient world, 300 years back, 400 years back. So he was a very good chess player, and he travels from like country to country, and he goes to a country and wins everybody that are over there. And so then the king invites him to say, "Oh, I'm truly impressed. You're a fantastic player, and you won all the chess masters in our country. So tell me, what do you want as your gift or present? I want to really support and give you a big gift." Right? A guy with a smile on his face says, "Oh, king, I'm just a poor chess player, and all I need is rice to eat." Right? So, and since my whole life is dependent on chess, just do this. Give me just 1 grain of rice on the first square of my chessboard, then double it on the next, then double it again on the third, double it again on the fourth square, and so forth. Fill up my chessboard, and I'm done. That's all I need. The king looks puzzled. That's all you need? I mean, I have so much of gold and diamond, and I can give you so much, and let me know. No. That's all I need. So the king says, "Oh, okay, well, give him a bag of rice." And they just give him a bag of rice. And you can take the whole rice, keep the rest, right? The chess player says, no, actually count and then show me that you've really given me enough rice to cover all 64 squares in the chessboard, doubling one by one. And they start doubling. You might realize it's not so simple, right? So I myself created this spreadsheet. So each time I see it, I still surprise myself. So if you keep going, it's like 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, keeps going up to even like 10. Okay, we've only gone up to like 1,000 grains of rice, right? It's nothing. And then you go 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Then I actually did it this way to show this is number of grains, then convert that into kilograms, right? So eventually you read maybe like 1 kilogram when you go to this 17. So this is just 1.3 kg of rice. Convert that into 100 kilogram bags, then convert that into metric tons. Then you go and look at how much rice the entire world produces every year. It's about 700 million metric tons in 1 year. So keep going that, and then you go all the way down to the 64 squares in the chessboard. That actually comes down to 264 years worth of rice produced in the entire world, right? And even like 100 years back, we were not producing 700 million tons of rice per year.
நான் உங்களுதுல கேட்டுட்டு இருக்கேன் அப்போலேருந்து.
Hello, whoever is saying உங்களுதுல இருந்து கேட்டுட்டு இருக்கேன், we can hear you. So if you can mute yourself, it would be good. So so even 100 years back, we were not producing that much rice. So the point here is, if you take the entire history of civilization and then see how much rice we produced, it still won't cover that 64 square he has, right? So why are we talking about it? This is the power of exponential rise, right? The human mind is only used to linear or maybe arithmetic increase in quantity. We are not used to exponential rise. We can't really compute. We can't really understand that. So what happens here is, like that Lake Michigan picture was showing, for a very long time it looked like nothing much is really happening, but then suddenly you will see things just shooting up, right, really fast. And we have been doing that in computers, and this is Intel's one of the 3 founders of Intel, called Gordon Moore. You might have heard about this. I mean, he just made a prediction that in the integrated chips, every couple of years, we can potentially double the density of the transistors that it can go in every square millimeter. Okay? And we have been doing that for 50 years. So we have doubled it about 25 times. 25 times we have doubled it over and over and over and over the last 50 years. So compared to where we were 50 years back, now it's like whatever 180 million times dense chips are actually coming out now, right? The capacity or the impact of this is really hard for us to understand because we are not dealing with exponential rise in our daily lives that much. Why is it important? Again, because it's in many ways really, really good, right? Meaning, because we are able to pack so much of computing density in each one of these chips, we are able to make things so much cheaper. And that's why everybody in the world is able to walk around with a cell phone that has more computing power than the supercomputers of the 60s or 70s, right? So that is good. But if you really ask people to think through and then project how things are going to change in the future, since we are not used to this exponential rise idea, we'll always keep thinking back so many years. If you say 10 years back or like 20 years later, how technology will be, we'll just look back 10 years and 20 years back and see how things have changed over the last 1 or 2 decades and try to project it into the future, saying that's how things will change, right? So this is the trajectory based on the orange, like we should start from the red one, trajectory based on past growth rate. So this is how it was. So we expect it to grow this much more, right? And trajectory based on present growth rate, meaning forget the past. We notice it's racing faster. So maybe this orange line, we think it's going to go up to this point. But both of these are bad predictions, meaning we are underestimating how things are going to change. And this green line is probably the correct one, indicating how much it's going to change, right? So there is a lot of change that are coming in that's becoming possible if you're following the AI, artificial intelligence, ML, machine learning, and DL, deep learning developments. You will keep hearing things are like speeding up. There are a lot more things getting done. And even in our own lives, we might have seen how clunky computers of the 90s were compared to what we have today, right? So we have this artificial intelligence. Within that, we have this machine learning. Within that, we have deep learning, areas in which Intel is really interested, involved, and we work on it on a regular basis. So these things usually work in this way. There is a simple neural network where we put some kind of input, it does some computation, and then some output comes out, right? Whereas in deep neural networks, we give some input, but after that, there are multiple stages of computation that takes place within the neural network that we don't really understand step by step, stage by stage, and then some output comes out. In general, it's good, right? So for example, it could be used in make my trip kind of websites. So you have an origin airport and destination airport, you want to depart that day, etc. You feed that in, then it can actually compute and tell you what kind of price customers should be paying, right? So this can be highly optimized, but we don't really understand what's happening inside. So again, it's a complicated problem. Looks, oh my God, what do we do? So there are thought processes going on. Intel is part of a consortium that says explainable AI, meaning unless we can really understand what is going on in each one of these stages, we don't want that pushed out as a technology going forward, right? Let's slow down. Let's make sure we understand what's going on before we let the whole thing run wild. But is it always bad? Is it always going to be dangerous? Not necessarily. So I can keep talking about so many different cases that is of interest. So just to give you a couple of examples, in Syracuse is a city in the state of New York. So they had water pipeline in the city. It was laid out 100 plus years back. So every now and then the water pipelines will keep breaking. Then they'll go dig it up. That part of the town will miss water supply for a couple of days. Then they need to go fix that pipeline to get the water supply restored, right? So this was going on. And people tried to get some money to get all the pipes replaced. Even politicians don't want to do it because it's an infrastructure project. Even if all the pipes are replaced, you can't stand in front of it, take a picture and say we did this fantastic thing. And it's going to only improve or like maintain the water supply. It's not going to like put up a new shiny building, anything like that. So it's not a very nice and sexy project for the government to fund quickly, right? So they were really struggling with that. So they worked with the New York State University. They took up all the details of the data that was available as to over the last few decades, how things were breaking, how things were fixed, etc. Fed it into a machine learning algorithm. And when they had like, let's say 30 years worth of data, they gave 20 years worth of data to the system and then asked it to predict where it's going to fail next, right? The machine learning algorithm learned and then predicted something. Something was right, something was not right. But they remember we fed only 20 years worth of data. So they looked at 21st year's data and said, hey, machine, you said this correctly, but this was wrong, right? Wrong, right, wrong, right. So it learns from that process and then predicts where things are going to fail in year 22. Again, we have the data. So they went and fed that and corrected it again. Did that 10 times up to that year 30. Now the machine is starting to put out much more precise data as to where things are going to fail. So rather than replacing the entire city's infrastructure, now they can go and proactively start fixing the failures before it actually happens, right? It saves a lot of money, time, effort. It's an improved service for the city. So that's great. But if you, and they've actually put that code up there in GitHub, so any city in the world can pick that up and then try to use that same idea to improve water supply in any of the cities in the world. Nothing. But in University of Pittsburgh, they ran a trial to see when people are coming in, who needs to be admitted into the hospital and who can be treated and then sent home without hospital admission. We can talk just about that for a long time. The machine did not have all the information, so it kept making some wrong predictions, right? There were, of course, doctors involved in looking at, are the machine's predictions correct? They could quickly find out that, hey, in these areas, it's not understanding that even though these people were originally not admitted, they were treated with this ABC kind of medication, and so they did not require hospital admission. But if you don't do it, they're going to get far worse and they're going to die. So they could actually go and fix and correct it. So if you just let the algorithm run wild, it's not going to really do great until it has enough data coming in that will teach it enough to fix all the errors it's committing initially, right? But in the real world, it may really end up killing people. So to predict the health of pneumonia patient, that's what the study was about. So they had to actually stop the study because it wasn't really good at that point. So these things continue to improve. It's a general, now there is like a thing called GAN, G-A-N. This is Generative Adversarial Network. What happens here is instead of just teaching the network, we actually tell the system to start creating fake images of what would look real, right? And then the fake images are again fed to the system, ask it to predict whether it is a true image or a false image. And the system learns from that, and then it keeps predicting more and more. And here the idea is not just training the system to identify fake and real images, but actually to improve the fake image creation algorithm itself so that it can get to such sophistication, such polished level that it can no longer, nobody, not human being, not machines, can really discriminate or figure out whether what is true or what is real. This may sound dangerous at the face of it, but this is now used in cancer treatment. So you can take the initial cancerous tumors of a patient and then give it to these GAN networks that can then predict, basically create fake images of how this tumor is going to progress in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year time frame, so that we can start treating the patient ahead so that they don't get to that point, right? So there is always virtues, there is always good things that can be done with the technology, but if you don't carefully monitor, it can also be used to create fake videos that may be really hard to figure out whether it's real or somebody really said XYZ in the video, or it's a fake video that you might have started seeing on the web already. So there are a lot of stories, instances like that. So there is a Target is one of the chain stores in the US. So this happened a few years back. They were looking at, they meaning not the people, the target computer algorithms were looking at things that people were buying. Then they noticed a young lady buying a series of products, right? So things like she was buying cotton swabs and then some soaps that were less and less fragrance over a period of time. And that predicted that indicates that she's pregnant. She's not able to tolerate high fragrant soaps or cotton swabs, things like that. And it was able to predict when she's going to deliver the baby. And then she started sending her coupons for diapers and such. The father of the daughter got really pissed off and called Target and yelled at them. But later on, when a VP of the Target called to apologize, saying, "Oh, sorry, we shouldn't have done that," the father had to sheepishly admit that, "Oh, yeah, she's actually pregnant and I didn't know." So this made like a lot of headline news 4 or 5 years back, indicating that even compared to close family members, the computers can actually predict what's going on in people's lives much more precisely, right? So this is the CAPTCHA that you might have heard about. This is to figure out whether somebody is real or it's a robot that is doing something. So these kinds of things, now they are becoming like smarter and smarter. So instead of just asking you to solve CAPTCHA thing, now there are like similar to facial recognition. Now there are gait, meaning how do you walk? Even that has a fingerprint of yourself. I can predict who the person is, right? Things like that. So in these situations, are we getting into invasion of privacy issues? Are we improving the services? So it's all kind of a double-edged sword, and we need to think like how it's going to be used. The new IoT stands for Internet of Things devices, meaning everything from like toasters to microwave to washing machine, it's all getting connected to the internet now. When the washing machine is connected, if the load is done, it's going to send you a note to your phone. Yes, it's convenient. You can come and pick up and switch it over to the dryer, etc. That part is good. But on the other hand, the microwave is connected, so the systems can gather data as to how many popcorn that you are eating. So are you keeping up with a healthy diet, or is your diet not good? If it's not good, should you be penalized in your medical insurance or things like that, right? So how much information do you want to give in is something that we need to keep paying attention to. Like we said, that fake news, meaning with fake videos and photographs that could be created, you can manipulate elections, you can like spread false information, and with the speed with which we can spread such information, it doesn't take too long to create chaos in the society, right? So again, there are methods. So even Intel is involved in coming up with some sort of an encryption that will always put a tag in the fake images, so it will say it's like digitally manipulated. You cannot publish an image without that mark being there, at least embedded in there, things like that. So if you really think about it, you can fix all these problems in some way or another, But if the society, or at least the technologists involved in it, they are not paying attention to it, it's not going to be fixed, and it can really create problems to the society. Some of you may have heard about this one. There is a social credit system that is being implemented, or it's already kind of rolled out in China. China is exporting this model to other countries. Again, in theory, it's not bad, because when China started, they didn't have any way to 20 years back track people. So they'll take a bank loan here and then run away to some other part of the country, and the bank lost money, right? So there was nothing, no tracking going on. So in US, there is this credit scoring system. So it's mainly for finance. So if you take a loan, you pay it back properly, your credit scores up. If you don't pay it properly, your score goes down. So everybody has one credit score. And based on that, if your score is really good, you get car loan, house loan, whatever loan that you want at a lower interest rate, and you get credit card offers and so forth. And I'm sure India also has such things now. It's becoming common. China didn't have that. And so when they started, instead of doing just a credit score, they went for a social credit system. As a result, in addition to your behavior with money, they are also tracking what else you are doing. Right? So if you are always crossing the road when the lights are allowing you to cross, you're not crossing over when there is a red light, or you are buying diaper because you have a baby to raise a good family, you keep getting positive points in your social credit system. So everybody starts with a score of 1000. If you do all the good things that the government or the system expects you to do, you keep getting positive score. So maybe you have 1100, 1200, and so forth. But if you do wrong things, you file for bankruptcy, you ran away without paying a loan, and then you got multiple traffic tickets, and then you got arrested once, and etc., your score keeps going down, right? Down. So if your score goes below certain threshold, 700, something like that, you are no longer allowed to buy plane tickets, because planes are supposed to be a privilege that good people in the society enjoy, not open to everybody, right? Is that right? Is that wrong? If such a system comes up in India, should be supported, not supported? If so, why? So there has to be a discussion of that sort. I mean, if you really dig in, I can send these links to you. You can go in and see, and there are a lot of stories now because it's been around for 3-4 years. You can see somebody honestly starting a business, let's say related to coal. The government changed policy saying we are going all green now, and so coal usage suddenly dropped, and they are not able to keep up the business. They filed for bankruptcy. Their social credit score went down, right? And now they have a hard time paying it back. So it may not be exactly their particular fault, but they got caught in this big net. So is that right? Is that wrong? How do you do that, right? So all this basically keeps coming back to our original point that even decades back, centuries back, technology always kept changing. So printing press, when it came in, maybe put out a lot of people who were copying stuff by hand. And horse and buggy came up, and then subsequently petrol cars came up, horse and buggies went away, and so forth. But in those cases, the changes were comparatively slow. So we had a little bit of time to adopt, even though it wasn't without any loss. But forthcoming changes, this is going to be really swift, right? Meaning very quickly things can change, and it can make a lot of jobs go away. New jobs coming in may not have that much in number. So what are all the other people who lost the job going to do? Things like that. So with AI, there is this narrow intelligence, general, and then the super intelligence of different kinds of AI that is coming in. And there is this person called Kurzweil. He's a futurist. So he kept computing how much computing power you can buy for $1,000, right? So if it is 1900, 1920, 50, you can buy maybe this Apple Mac 2 computer, etc., for $1,000, but it's less than one insect brain kind of computing capacity. But pretty soon, right now, I mean, around the 23, we are pretty close to getting like one human brain worth of computing power for $1,000. But if this trend continues pretty quickly, it's going to keep going up. So if you can buy so much computing capacity, what is going to happen? So there could be this projection that people are talking about what's called this technological singularity, meaning we're going to come to a point where the machines can do a lot more, a lot faster, a lot better. And so it can tip the scale in the other direction. And so when that point happens, we want to be ready. We want to be thinking about it. We want to guide that development in such a way that it's not adversely affecting us too much, right? It need not be robots coming in to kill everybody, anything like that. But even you can see, for example, 20, 30 years back, travel agents might be a big job, middle class job, but now it's no longer needed because you can quickly do your booking through the system. So, but now the technology has improved enough to say software can write newspaper reports, right, or law scribes and things like that. So when those things happen, how are we going to make sure that the jobs that get eliminated, people do get reasonable quality of life, they get something else that they can actually do, and so forth. So if there is no use for labor, the economy is going to stagnate, right? So we don't want that. And so I was looking for nice way of illustrating that. I found this picture. I initially thought this was actually photoshopped, but it's not. It's actually taken from Sao Paulo in Brazil. So you can see one side of the society, people like us, right? So we always think it's some rich people sitting somewhere else, but we are all technologists. So people like us might get into this part of the society, but there is a whole mass that's going to be left out, not being able to compete here, get into this. So if you really say everybody who loses their job, being a coal miner or anything else that you can think of, everybody needs to go join Infosys and Google and start writing code. That's not going to happen, right? So we need to see what needs to happen so that we don't like start increasing this income inequality too much and then creating strain within the society. What can be done? There is a lot. So, for example, I like to think in biology. You might have heard about these tools like CRISPR, 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 which is a gene editing tool. Even though that can, it's become so cheap, it can be deployed to do a lot of things. There is a worldwide moratorium saying, hey, we don't want to rush into this. We really want to go slow because we haven't understood how it's going to affect us. And so we need to wait. We want to go slow, go step by step to get these things done, right? So similarly, Intel kind of companies are stepping in to see what we can do. So ACM, which is Association for Computing Machinery, that has actually put up a code of ethics. So people who are working in this area, what questions do we need to ask? So even little things as 20, 30 years back, if you write software, the ethical question to ask is, is the software doing what it's supposed to do? That's it, right? But now people have to ask a little bit more. It's not only is it doing what it's supposed to do, but what are all the domains, in which areas can it be used, and can there be any adverse effects in how things can be used? And engineers are getting into that mindset. So if you go search the web, you will find Google engineers or Microsoft engineers protesting certain things. I mean, so they don't want facial recognition software sold for criminal crime identification purposes until we get to a point where we are like beyond like 99.99999% level of accuracy, right? And when employees are like the thought leaders protest, they talk about it, the society wakes up, then companies do pull back, and then they do the right thing. So it's always possible. So Intel kind of companies have developed things like this explainable AI. So only when we understand, then we can go to the next level. So we can look at what can be done at different levels. At professional levels, individually, we need to look at these options to say, to see what we can do, what questions we need to ask, and how we need to engage our own family, friends, colleagues, society to discuss what's right and what's wrong. At the societal level, we need these conversations. We should volunteer, we should interact with different segments of the society to understand what their pains and difficulties are. If you can just look up my name on the web, you might find a lot of different articles that I've written that kind of tries to touch upon. So that's my way of understanding, try to get into the issues in different domains, right? And BKM, this is an internal term, best known method, meaning whatever we know really works, correctly works, adopt, so that we don't need to fumble through a lot of mistakes to get to the same kind of solutions later. At the national level, support reasonable regulations, meaning quite often these days in US as well as in India, whenever there is a new rule, by default, we try to like protest or say, oh, that's not right, oh, that affects this part, that part. But if there is no reasonable regulation, things may actually fall apart. And companies that have a fiduciary duty, their purpose is to increase their shareholder value, they might keep moving in one direction, right? So we need some reasonable regulation to make sure things are done right. So let's try to understand and see what can be done. Ease of relocation and working from remote location. Some good thing that came out of the pandemic is that now people understand a lot of things can be done remotely. That alone can improve job opportunity for people who are too far away from the centers of the world, right? So you need not be in Bangalore to do tech job, or you need not be in, even like remote surgeries, those kinds of things are becoming possible. So making that more and more accessible, available to people, that those things can be done at the national level. And there is this right to know movement, meaning when a software is sold, when a technology comes out, what are the impact, what is it doing, how is it going to be done, etc. Support that. So these are all things that I could think of that can slowly guide the technological changes towards a path that mostly positively impact the society rather than negatively, right? So I keep this as my general guiding principle. Be kind, be curious, so understand, get involved, talk about it, be curious, and be connected, so that you're not always stuck in your own bubble, your own WhatsApp group, your own religion, culture, country, anything like that, but get connected to different kind of people, segments, society, parts of the world to understand what's going on, so that we can enrich ourselves in our thought process, right? That's why I started out initially with this image of Janus. So since it's looking in two different directions, so we do need to look forward and backward. Like we keep saying, we are used to just arithmetic progression, not exponential rises. So we need to look at what happened in the back and how things are moving, and then how it can move in the future. So the future can be very different from history. So we need to make sure, as part of the citizens of the society that are involved, need to make sure the ethics keeps getting complemented with good set of regulation. So we need to keep our vision in both directions, right? So that's my last slide and my concluding slide. Thank you. If you all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I'm looking at the chat. Let me see if there is anything.
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
that Michigan Lake example, I didn't quite understand. Can you explain it a little bit more?
Which one? The Michigan Lake example? Okay, yeah, sure. We can go back to that one. actually, the point was fairly simple, which I reiterated in several different ways. If you look at this, right, so this is the Lake Michigan volume of water in fluid ounces. So think of this as when this whole thing is filled with this blue, that's how much water is there in Lake Michigan, right? And we are, if you can read this, it's about the same as our brain's capacity in calculation per second, right? So if it can have whatever billions of fluid ounces, so many billions is what our brain can actually compute. So like we said, the computing power doubles every 18 months because we kept saying we can pack more and more transistors into every square millimeter, right? So what this is trying to show is, look at this. Actually, when you start from the beginning, so this goes up to like 2024, 25. So it starts from 1940. So 1950, still don't see anything. 70, 80s, 90s, 2000. Till then, you don't see anything at all. Since, even though the computing power kept increasing, but in the subsequent 1 or 2 decades, the increase suddenly completes this entire volume, right? So similar to the grains of rice idea that we were talking about, the chess player. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 times you multiply, you have only 1,000 grains of rice that you can hold in one palm of your hand, right? But when you go to 20, suddenly it just goes up. So subsequently, every doubling is going to really increase the amount of computing capacity that you are going to have. And as a result, till few years back, even maybe 2010, it may not be that much, but 2012, 2014, it's just doubling every year. So now we are in 2022. In 2024, you're going to have practically double the amount of computing capacity that you had now just in 2 more years. If that is happening, you're going to have so much more computing capacity available to you, similar to the entire lake filling up in just not in the last 30, 40 years, but just in the last 2 years, right? Because it's doubling. So similarly, since the computing capacity is going to be so much more, the effect can be instantaneous across the world, and it can change the societies dramatically. That's what I was thinking.
Thank you very much.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely, sure.
Sure. Hi, Sundar. My name is Sushma. In fact, I'm also from Pennsylvania.
Okay, great.
Yeah, fabulous session.
Thank
2
you.
questions.
Yes.
Do you think that times, in our, maybe in the next decade or so, the whole social media interactions will have an ethical component to monitor this? We've been through a lot. I won't go into all of that, so want to know your perspective. And second, will you be sharing the deck with all of us if you want to?
Sure. Yeah. And the second question is easy. Yeah, I'll send the PDF version of the deck to the organizers, and they can share them with you. If you go to YouTube, you might find like older versions of the talk I have given, so it should be online as well. Going back to your first question, if you that's why I was trying to say, if you leave commercial entities to proceed on their own, everything is a double-edged sword, right? So if you make everything government run, and there is no incentive to improve the efficiency, etc., we know things take a lot of time. It's not very efficient. Things don't move fast, etc. So private enterprise is really important, and that's what moves things forward faster, efficiently. But they also always have a fiduciary responsibility to improve the shareholder value. So their focus will be one way or another, keep improving the shareholder return, make more money, right? And that's the main point. So by default, we left with no regulation or guidance or the societal pressure. I don't see an ethical component coming into the social media implementation, anything like that. But if there is pressure, if the society changes, or if the government regulations come in, then yes, the companies are going to respond, and then that means you can bring in the ethical aspect into social media in so many different ways, right? So there has to be some requirement, some pressure, something that need to come in. I don't see why companies would just go in and add an ethical aspect to social media on their own if there is not in their interest in some way or another.
Absolutely. Just like regulatory bodies in pharmaceutical, you're saying that there has to be some sort of a regulatory body that comes in. Sad, but true. Thank you. Thank you, Sundar.
True. Yeah. I mean, in Europe, for example, there is this GDPR, I think, General Data Privacy Regulation or something like that.
Yeah, GDPR. Yeah.
Yeah. So those kinds of things, right? So there is a requirement that's common for the entire Europe, saying you should have a right to like delete your old data, etc., etc. So I mean, we can talk about it for so long. Things like that. Once it's there, it's followed, it's supported, and systems can be made to adhere to that. But it's always a delicate balance, right? So you don't want to over-regulate and then kill the innovation that private industry can bring in fast and furious. On the other hand, we don't want to be too loose in regulation, letting them go wild either. And that's where I think people like us who are in the field, who are interested, need to get educated, need to get interactive, need to talk to people and see how policies should be shaped.
Thank you, Sundar.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. If there is no more questions.
Yes, sir. It was a wonderful session, sir. We enjoyed so much from your talk. I have a question, sir. Actually, I allowed other people to talk.
Yes.
No, this as per Moore's law, and whatever the technologies we have in this world, today's world, what we were in the childhood, what we saw some technology, and any it's an automobile or computer or industry, anything, like come to industry 4, 5, like you are telling, the telecommunication will say 1G, 5G, 6G, we are already talking. What is the, you told that there is a human brain and a machine brain. Where is you told once there is a machine brain crosses, now we are finished like that. I saw your one of the slide. Where is the time that are we going to become slave of the machines once?
I mean, there is a distinct possibility if you really go into that area and start digging into it. I do talk about it even in the Thought Experiments book in some fashion. Of course, there are even discussions about even the machine brain. I mean, once upon a time, whatever in the human society evolution is the most complicated thing, we try to compare it with the brain, right? So I don't know, 200 years back, clock was considered the most complicated thing. And so people have written how clock is similar to a human brain, etc., etc. Now we don't think clock is like a human brain, but now computer is the most complicated thing. So we keep comparing it with the human brain. And there are discussions as to even, is it the right comparison? Aren't they like two different entities doing two different things? And that is all true. But it's also true that the computing capacity keeps evolving, and it just helps us understand in that Ray Kurzweil curve that it's speeding up quite a bit. And so we are pretty close to having one human brain capacity, and pretty soon we'll have a lot more. And when it goes to that point, our computer is going to make decisions that may not be really good for us. And are we going to let it just run wild, and so they can really take over and do things that we don't have any control over? Is that the right thing to do? Should we pull the thing back a little bit and then slow down? That's kind of where we are. So you can read a lot of interesting sci-fi stories as to where it just takes off, even if it's a benign AI where it's not really trying to kill human beings or anything. It has its own end goals, and it's trying to do something. And on the side, if it adversely affects human beings, it doesn't care. Kind of. I mean, if you're laying a big road on the side, and if there are ants on the side that get crushed, we don't really care about it. So there are projections, things like that might happen. So we have to be careful to like guide it, make sure that that doesn't happen, so that we can survive as well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It was an enlightening lecture for all of us. Really, we have taken us a new world. Really, thank you so much. There was a lot of appreciation on the chat box. That is Mr. Anda Kumar. Thanks for thought-provoking lecture. And Vedivel Murugan said about excellent presentation, sir. And Raj Bhakta has told excellent presentation, nicely stitched examples. And Gopinath to everyone, a fabulous presentation, both in content and delivery. So Sundar Vedandam, thank you so much. A presentation that all students technology should listen to and ponder. And
thank you so much.
Sivarams has told excellent. And Susma has already said, I do have some questions. He asked some questions at a broader level. Do you think social media like that? I think you answered. And I
Yes.
meet with him, another one person meeting ID 870 is name is now excellent. Somebody asked about the presentation. That is Susma has asked about the presentation.
Yes, yeah. Susma, yeah, I can send the PDF version. Not a problem. Yeah.
Okay, sir. It was an excellent show, sir. Really, we enjoyed your session, and we are very much thankful to you for your valuable time with us and sharing your rich thoughts with us. Really, it's marvelous, and we'll have a physical mode, sir. After we are actually virtual. After the pandemic, we switched out to virtual. Even Randraman sir was why don't you fix a physical mode? And next year we are planning this physical mode. You just intimate me your presence, then we will have your physical meeting also. That's all.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you again.
We'll have more association in future. We'll have touch with you. We want to grab the emerging technologies and latest technologies with you people like you. Thank you so much. Now 2 more agendas, sir. I'll call upon any participants, any questions you can ask. I will move on to the next agenda. Okay, sir. We'll unshare the screen, sir. So we will go to the gallery mode so that we'll see the other persons also.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much.
Wait. So two more agendas there. One is next week program announcement, and one more thing is about vote of thanks.
Yes.
I call upon Dr. Kevin R. Kumar, our Honorary Secretary, announce the next week's program as well as propose vote of thanks. Over to Dr. Kevin R. Kumar.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Please.
I thank our today's speaker for his wonderful presentation, and similarly, we are going to have a presentation lecture program on next week Tuesday, and the speaker is Dr. Ingersoll. He is from Indian Space Research Organization, Bangalore, and he will be delivering a lecture on cleaner energy solutions. So I invite each and every one of you to participate in this program, and you also invite your friends and colleagues to join in this program. Thank you.
I propose a vote of thanks, Dr. Kevin R. Kumar. You have one more agenda.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Please propose vote of thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Actually, it's a privilege for me to propose vote of thanks in this program. I thank for this opportunity. I thank our today's speaker for giving a high-tech program which we have not seen in the past few months. So I really enjoyed this program. I personally enjoyed it. So thanks for giving an international view about the technological things, what is happening around and other things. So thank you. And this has been commented by every one of us in this chat box, and somebody has asked their questions. So it's a really enjoyable program, and it's a required program also. So I thank our speaker for spending time with us and having discussions with us. So I also thank our dignitaries who are present in this, our past chairman, our professors from various institutes. I thank each and every one of the participants who are present here. And I also thank the associate partners for this program: Computer Society of India, Indian Welding Society, Indian Institute of Welding, industrial engineers, and other associate partners. So I thank all the audience for attending this wonderful lecture program. I also thank our host, Engineer Selvaraj sir, for arranging and for anchoring this program. I thank each and every one of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kevin. I have to thank our friend, Mr. Anandaraman, long friend of our IEI Technology Institute. Also Bhaktajalam sir, who was behind the arranging this. Thank you so much, sir, Bhaktajalam sir. All the participants throughout the India and also abroad, some people also come. Thank you so much. With all your permission, we will close the program. I actually thank Ronald Rice also from Mumbai and other people all over the Iqbal Chaugan, from people from throughout India and our own friends, touchy friends. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. With the permission of our speaker, we'll close. Good night, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks to Dr. Bhaktavachalam as well.
Thank
And
you,
then
everyone.
please
Good
look
night,
me up,
everyone.
keep yourself on the web. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.